Longer than some of you were born, and certainly before they invented Spanx. So, you know how difficult my job has been. Some people think that I became a costume designer because I enjoyed fashion, but actually it was quite the opposite. It was the stories that I read as a child. Langston Hughes, Ida B. Wells, so many stories that were by literary giants that I could see the images in my mind. And when I attended Hampton, I really wanted to be a theater major and to see some of these characters come to life. I had this wish to work for the Negro Ensemble Company in New York City one day because I saw A Soldier Story and it really impacted me, and I loved Lady Sings the Blues, but I came from a legacy of teachers, and these teachers were Hampton Institute students. My aunt was there, the Easter family. My uncle was there. Some of you might remember him in the administration building, the guy with the big, thick glasses. That was Rufus Easter. He was my uncle. And my cousins were in the architectural department and in education. So I was introduced to Hampton as a teacher. I wanted to be a special education teacher. So I enrolled in education first. And I was trying to learn sign language, but the theater department kept calling my name, and I'd go and I'd audition for plays, and eventually one of the professors said, do you want to try doing the costumes? And I was like, that's the consolation prize. So I said I'd try it, because I grew up in Springfield, Mass with a sewing machine in my room. Many of you grew up with a sewing machine in your home, and the sewing machine is a part of our legacy. It's a part of who we became as we dressed the bodies of the people who owned us, and we didn't dare call ourselves designers. And I'm here representing them because they paved the way for me. And so I was this girl growing up with a sewing machine in her room, and I didn't sew very well, but I like to play around with it. And I have two brothers who are artists, and we love to draw, and we draw characters. So by the time that professor said to me, do you want to try and do the costumes for this play? I thought I could do it because of what I had done at home with drawing. So I drew the characters, and I went upstairs in Armstrong Hall, and there was a little room upstairs that was a costume shop. And no one was using this shop for anything, but it was fully equipped. And I used the key, I opened the door, and that became my workshop. And before long, at Hampton University, I became known as the costume designer of all the plays and the musicals. I even did the Kappas. They did a remake of Thriller, and I did their costumes, and I really, really enjoyed it. I enjoyed that work that I was doing, and I spent lots of time in that little costume shop, just like being an artist. And so, I'm really, really proud of this Legacy Award, because the legacy at Hampton is about supporting education and supporting Black people as we grow and we learn and we contribute and give back to our culture. And so I graduated from Hampton, and I met a man named Spike Lee. And Spike was with my buddy, fellow Hamptonian Robbie Reed, and she introduced me to him, and I was working in local theater in Los Angeles, you know, because I drove across country in my little Volkswagen Rabbit to go out to Hollywood, and I was working in theater in Los Angeles, which is kind of crazy because there's really not that much theater in LA, but I didn't know. And Spike was saying to me, you know, hey, this is how you're going to get more film experience. You know, go to USC or UCLA and sign up in the senior film, sign up for a senior thesis project in the film department. And so I did, and I signed up, and before long, I was hearing, you know, quiet on the set, you know, we're rolling, and I was like, wow, you know, I had come from theater where I was doing Moliere and Shakespeare, and this seemed really easy. Two people on a swing, you know, just having a conversation. So I thought to myself, wow, this is something I think I can really do, because, you know, I was the costume designer at Hampton University. A few months later, I get a phone call, and, you know, I'm toiling away in Los Angeles, doing whatever I can, you know, not making very much money. I had a little studio apartment. Robbie likes to call it, I had a room with a view. You know, you could see the Hollywood sign from my one-bedroom apartment. Anyway, I got a phone call about 5 o'clock in the morning, and I said, hello? And the voice on the other side said, Ruth. I said, yes. I said, Ruth. Yes. Ruth. Yes. This is the man of your dreams. And I said, Denzel? And he's like, no, this is Spike. And I want you to do my next movie. And it was School Days. So from then on, we went on to do 14 films together.
Wow.
And the passion was infectious. Spike Lee would always say to me, Ruth, there are not enough black people behind the camera, and we're going to bring people in. We're going to start something new. We're going to uplift the race. I remember I did a T-shirt for him that said, uplift the race, you know, W.E.B. Du Bois. So we began our journey, and we did a film called Malcolm X, and I cherish that journey because it was just Spike. He was the man in charge. It was not a studio film. And as Denzel embarked on New York City from LA, he would say, you know, don't treat him like he's Hollywood, just treat him regular. And we researched Malcolm X's life. I went to the Department of Corrections, and I asked to see his files, the real Malcolm X's files. And I had to go through a letter writing campaign, and they sat a big, huge stack of papers in front of me, all kinds of letters that he would write to the commissioner wanting to get to a better library, and his health records and all kinds of things. And I learned so much about him that it was a passion, it was a labor of love. And lo and behold, I received my first Oscar nomination at 31 years old.
Wow.
And so from that, I felt that I had given back to my community and that there was purpose in my work. And then Hollywood began to take notice. I got a call from Steven Spielberg and Debbie Allen. And Debbie Allen had brought to Steven Spielberg the movie Amistad. And I was summoned to Steven Spielberg's compound at Universal in Los Angeles. And and there was no script that I could read, but I got the cliff notes on the Amistad story, and I read it. And Steven Spielberg was shooting Jurassic Park at the time, and he was going to meet with me at his lunch, during his lunch, and I went into a conference room, and all the chairs were pulled around the room except for the two we would sit in across from each other on this big conference table. And he came in and he said, "I really loved your work on Malcolm X. And here's the script. Take it home, read it, and let me know if you would like to work with me on it." Now, that's pretty impressive. I truly felt like I could just go out to the parking lot and call him from my car. But I went home and I read Amistad, and I went on a journey of research and studying the Africans that were marooned, in a sense, in the Eastern Seaboard, and worked with Jaimin Hunsu, and in 1996 received my second Oscar nomination for Amistad. And then, you know, as life has it, you get married, you do all kind of stuff, and I was called to go in to interview for Black Panther. And I had never done a superhero. I had never done a superhero film before. I was thinking, like, why me? I mean, what does this require? And I pulled together a lot of research after I looked at the comics. You know, I was a little Lotta, kind of Archie girl. I was not the Black Panther. My brother had all the Black Panther comics, and they were off limits to me, you know. So I called my friends, and I called my brother, who was a police officer in Springfield, Mass., and before I knew it, he had 3 police cars lined up, window to window, shouting to me on his cell phone about, you know, all the things about Black Panther. So I was like, this is big. So I put together a lot of images on Afrofuture, put a lot of images together and put them in a Dropbox for my interview. So I go over to Marvel, and, you know, Marvel is kind of like the CIA, you know. You got to get an eye scan, you know, like that exam you have at the eye doctor where the air goes up into your eyes. And I'm really nervous, and I go in to an office where Ryan Coogler and Nate Moore is the executive on Black Panther. They were sitting in the room waiting for me. And I was trying to open that Dropbox, and it just wouldn't open. And I was like, what's going on here? I got my laptop, I got all my stuff all organized, and it ain't opening. Little did I know, you know, there's a firewall at Marvel. You can't just open something that could be compromised. And Ryan was real casual, and he looked at me and he said, "Ruth, I'm really glad you're here. I was a little boy when Malcolm X came out. And I remember my dad took me to the theater to go see that film. And I sat on his lap. And even as a little boy, I remember the costumes. I felt like I had auditioned for Black Panther when that director was a little boy. And at that moment, I knew that I had something that I could offer him as a filmmaker with years of experience. And the kind of legacy building that we did over the years was transferred and affected by this little boy to this young man who was now tasked with directing one of the biggest films of the year that went on to make $1.5 billion worldwide. Wow. So they eventually helped me get those files open, and it was remarkable that we had some of the same images that when he took me to his office that I had, you know, on my Dropbox, and there was a synergy to it, but we were not proven. Black Panther was not a proven film, and Marvel was sort of behind it. We were more behind it, I think, than anyone. We knew it was special. And it took a lot of heart to get it done. I'll just say, you think about Captain America has maybe 25 of the same costumes that are built. On Black Panther, we had 6. And one was for Chadwick, one was for his photo double, one was for his stunt double. And so that's not very many. So there's a lot of processes involved with it, but the biggest thing was that the heart that went into creating the looks based on real tribes and giving back to our culture, giving back to people the beauty of Africa, and redirecting and changing the eye to see other forms of beauty that we don't get to see on camera. So I will conclude that being a legacy builder is everything that I have ever been. And I think about the accounts of Ida B. Wells, who was like a field reporter in the 1920s, and she saw people on the street being brutally beaten, and she was out there writing it down for a newspaper. And she was writing those stories like Zora Neale Hurston was writing her literary works, so that someone like me could read and visualize and see and pass on a legacy of visual storytelling that hopefully will inspire someone one day to also be a legacy builder. Thank you. I'm Ruth Carter, a Hampton University graduate.
Wow.
And the 20